Here.
Jim,
Here.
Randy,
Here.
Jeff,
Here.
Jason,
Here.
Jake.
Okay, we have a quorum. We stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion and a second to approve the agenda, please.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Turn it over to me.
All right, only thing on the agenda is our April tax levy, and just to continue the conversation we had in the last board member meeting to kind of solidify and finalize the direction that we're definitely going. So, and Hannah's here, and she and I we met last week to kind of go through and finalize some things. So she's got some updated numbers too that I think you'll be interested in, but just to kind of go over a little bit of information, maybe. And some information I got from the last meeting. So the overall increase to the teacher base pay to get it to 45,000 is 15%. And that's a 15% difference from our right now base pay. Well, that'll cost $1,727,000. We had a conversation a little bit about non-certified director admin. I took out director and admin because we'll need to, as a board, determine what we want to do with our directors and admin. 15% increase will put us way out of alignment of what's equitable there. But for the non-certified, trying to bring that information in to give every non-certified staff member a 15% increase is $300,000 of that total $2 million increase that we would need. So I know there was a little bit of discussion about it being just teacher, but I really am adamant that I think it needs to be all non-certified. I did bring in, and I wanted to share a little bit just of some of the pay scales of what we've got going on with our non-certified staff. Here is custodial. So you can see custodians start at $13.44 an hour. What's the difference? They were at 13 and they're at $14 an hour now. So knowing where our market is and knowing that staff can go anywhere else and make money. But I also want to show you the secretary. And we've got, not secretary, paraprofessionals. And we've got just a lot of big needs. I can't put my hair. A lot of big needs among our special education population, and our paras are vital to that. This slide. So here's our para pay. We do have just column one is somebody that just takes the para assessment through university or through the state. They're going to make $14.12 an hour. If they come in to us with college hours, they're going to start making $14.51 an hour, and if they come to us with a college degree, $17 an hour. So again, these are people who can go a variety of places and make a lot more, and adding that 15-cent increase, knowing that total cost is right around $300,000 in the scheme of everything, they're vital to our day running successfully, and I just think we'll lose really good people if, as a board, we don't support them, but also if we don't stay competitive with their wages, especially as minimum wage continues to go up, and they can go work at a variety of different places. So, we did make them full-time employees, and we have added full health insurance and full and retirement pay into those positions, which I think for the paras, they hadn't been. Our custodians and our secretaries already were receiving that, but our paras were not. So again, just any way we can to continue to give these support roles additional increases in salaries is just a way that we're going to hopefully be able to keep them. So bringing that back, go ahead.
I have a question. So that's the existing salary scale. That's
That was,
not after. Is
yeah.
that after the 15?
That was for this school year. That's what we
That's
approved for
existing.
this school year. Yep,
Okay. And but it's hourly, right? So they're not getting paid.
correct. They work 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So when we look at that just helps you see that the 1.7 million is for the certified pay, and then the 300,000 is non-certified pay. And then we would determine as a board how we want to adjust admin and directors' pay scales. If we give anything to that, we can always determine that later, but it wouldn't be the 15%. We already went through that, what our current tax levy is. So again, here's was the needs. If we look at that total increase for salary, the possibility of needing some new positions, trying to be able to make sure we have the funds to continue career ladder, the state portion, if the state doesn't, which we would anticipate that this year or next year, the state will most likely do away with that. I think we're seeing just phenomenal things, programs for our students to be involved in outside school hours that, it's kind of revitalized staff a little bit, and it's an incentive for more pay, but there's just some really great programming, kindergarten through 12th grade, going on with Career Ladder that I would advocate to keep it. So looking at, again, needing that $3.1 million in order to do all of those things. So Hannah's got some things, I'm gonna turn it over and kind of let her share. She's gonna share a little bit on the history of some of the money we've lost from Hancock, and then also some recalculations and helping us understand what that levy would look like. And I'll let you kind of go through the next few slides if you want to.
Sure, yeah. Well, good afternoon. It's nice to see everyone again. So, as Ms. Hampton had mentioned, this analysis here, we thought it would be beneficial to just understand what sort of revenue you've lost on the operating side just due to filling out the tax forms and the Hancock Amendment. So, looking here, and there's a lot more details that go into the tax form calculations. So this is just strictly looking at due to the Hancock Amendment and what that has done to the district since 2019.
Which, explain that exactly, the Hancock, the threshold, and that we have to roll back once we hit
Yeah, so
too much
when
increase.
each year the district will fill out its tax forms, and it will include your assessed valuations from the current year and the prior year, and then it will take into account that assessed valuation growth. There are some specifics in there where you have to subtract out any new construction value you've received or any difference in personal property values. But then the forms will look at that difference between the prior year and current year assessed valuation and determine the growth rate based on that adjusted value. And for example, in 2023, that growth was 25%. But on the tax forms, when you fill that out, and what the Hancock Amendment does is it actually limits you to the current CPI, which I do have that data, just not in front of me, but that data was 7% last year. So it's either that, and it's the lower of that, or 5%, or if there's negative growth like this year, it would just be 0. You would never see a decrease in your revenues based on that calculation. But what, in your situation, what Hancock has done is when you've received the 16% in 2019, the 10% in 21, and then the 25% in 23, you've been limited to a maximum of 5% revenue growth. And so what I've assumed here, I've taken what you're just, and this is just operating, I've taken what just your operating levy is in the 18 year, which was 3.7167. And then I just assumed that if Hancock didn't exist and you were able to just, set your tax rate at what you're growing at, you would generate this much revenue in each given year. So then the second section over here is your assessed valuation, and then it looks at your actual tax rate that you had to set based on Hancock Amendment and following those rules. So you can see the benefit or loss just year to year from having to roll back. So basically it's saying since 2019, when we've seen specifically in Jackson County the really high assessed valuation growth, you've not been able to capture that at all. You've actually, if you were able to, you would have brought in $43 million over the last 6 years, but due to Hancock, you've only brought in 36. And this all also assumes 100% collections, and I didn't factor in appeals and all of that, but it's just a good visual of, over 6 years, you've really missed out on $6.7 million, or an average of $1.1 million per year by not being able to just set your levy at what the district has grown at in terms of assessed valuations.
And just some sidebar stuff, I mean, it was a statewide bill that I think went into effect in the early '80s, if not '80s. And it's had a devastating effect on all public tax entities. I talked to 2 legislators last year about what's the possibility of putting something, I mean, I didn't even finish my sentence. Quote unquote, there's no way in hell we're gonna approach anything that's going to ask the public to eliminate a tax rollback. In fact, this year, when I was watching the pre-filed bills, it's kind of like watching the gas pump. The number, I think they're over 1,000 now. The education and tax cuts were just like side by side climbing. So I don't see any help from the legislature at all. This unfortunate piece of legislation is going to be around.
I'm assuming the jump in 23 and 24 is because of the increase in assessed valuation.
Yeah, that percent, you can see that percent change in that third column, 25.8. I mean, last year we ended up rolling, we had to roll back, last year alone was 58 cents or something like that, just in last year.
And so what, because of the way this is set up and how you set your tax levies, what does happen is over time, especially in districts that are growing more rapidly, what happens is over time, you have to roll your levy back. You're still able to capture, 5% revenue growth, but it doesn't, equal the amount of growth you're seeing in the district. So over time, as you roll back, citizens are actually getting a tax break because they're not
Paying the full.
they're not paying the full amount of their growth. And so then it's common for districts to go back every 3, 5, 10 years, depending on the situation, to go for an operating increase to kind of try to capture some of that revenue back that has been lost.
And that's
due
what
to
Sny
handout.
Valley is doing. So Sny Valley is doing 15 cents, and it's just to get back to their already approved rate, but they've rolled back so many years, so many times, that's what they're doing.
But we're still growing, just not at what could be. I mean, 5 years you've picked up, what?
1.6.
Yeah, 1.6 million. So, we're not losing money. I mean, that bill's there for a reason,
That's
or our
debatable.
taxes we'd be making tons of money. That's why that Hancock Amendment
Monitors.
exists.
Mhm.
Because if not, you'd be blowing it out of the water, we'd be swimming in tax money
Right.
like
No,
crazy.
yeah, you're
But,
correct.
but we're sitting here acting like we're losing money year after year when we're not.
Well,
I mean, I get it.
But Jason, when you have a tax assessment increase of, let's say, 15%, and the max you're gonna get is 5, yeah, we're losing revenue.
Well,
We're
and
losing that 10%.
when we know that we can't capture.
Individually, we may not be.
But let's go 20 years and that money, it would just keep growing and it would go so far out of realm that people would be paying so much taxes, it'd be like, why are we paying so much taxes?
The problem
It
is,
keeps the percentage.
what's happening is
level.
the growth is not exceeding us actually giving our staff like raises and
Have-
steps,
have
and it
we-
doesn't match
Have
up.
we really grown? When I sit here and look at numbers and we haven't grown,
We're so far behind neighboring districts, it's really sad. That's the problem.
are we spending too much money on bonds? Because if you look at Odessa,
Different funding.
our
Different.
yeah, but it's because our $1.80 is so much higher than everyone else. We could have an operating expense level with Odessa and not have our $1.80 so high. That's why we're behind in our teachers' pay.
That's not
Which is what
entirely
Mindy
true.
suggested, though. She suggested that we move some of the operating money over to help offset.
And,
Yes.
but in clarification, without that debt service fund that we had over the past few years, we would not have been able to do what we've done. And we've done some dramatic things and will do some dramatic things. We'd be in the same boat with Odessa sitting in the gym that was built in 1964. And an embarrassment to the conference, and so it's a balancing act. And I think, I appreciate where you're headed with that, but to say we're not losing revenue is not an accurate statement.
No, I think it's to say that we aren't capturing what our full levy was set at and approved at from voters because we've rolled back. And so because that, we need to have this next conversation. And so here's the levy transfer, the 70 cents that we looked at last time, which we feel is capable, that would give us the $2.3 million spread over 3 years so we can get that full growth rate, capture the full amount over 2 reassessment years. And then here's what 70 cents plus a 40-cent operating would bring us in, which would be 3.4, which would meet the financial of what we said all those needs would be. So this total would bring us to a little over, about $400,000 over what we're needing. And we talked last year, or last meeting, one of the questions was about our reserves. So right now, our reserves are at 15%, and reserves are Fund 1 and 2 of our expenditures year-end versus the assessed evaluation, or versus the fund balances. And so it adjusts a little bit every year, but a rough estimate is about 1%. To gain 1% is about $170,000. That was one of the questions you had asked Jim. So if we're at 15%, we want to get to 20%, we need about $855,000 to get us to that 20% reserves. So roughly about $170,000 per 1%. Now that fluctuates because it's your Fund 1 and 2 expenditures,
Correct.
and then your fund balance is the percent of the two. So as we increase expenditures, that just does adjust just a bit. A little more information Hannah's got is the levy impact. You want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, so this is just to really help visualize what your levies would do going forward
Each year.
if this was approved. So this example here is if you decided to do the transfer plus an additional 40-cent operating increase. So what you would see on the operating side is we would increase operating by 50 cents starting next year, 30 cents a year after, 30 cents a year after, to get the full $1.10 revenues and tax levy into operating. And then the district would make a corresponding reduction in debt service of only 30 cents. You know, you're adding 50 because we're also including the 40 cents additional. So we would reduce 30 cents year 1 and then 20 and 20. So total decrease in debt service of 70 cents. And then the total levy, these are what they would be over the next 3 years. So you can see there, that's how we're getting that net 40-cent increase between all of the funds. And then if that was the option the district would like to move forward with, this is just information on a $300,000 house in Oak Grove and someone who also owned 2 $15,000 vehicles, which we thought that those values were more relevant for Oak Groves.
Yeah, I think what I brought last month was $400,000 house and 2 $30,000 vehicles. So we were trying to hit more of the mean.
Yep. So in this scenario, year 1 for a homeowner, you would see a $114 increase on an annual basis, 57 the following year, and then another 57 the following year after that. So what is another kind of benefit of that, of doing the increase over 3 years, is that it is staggered over 3 years instead of just seeing that increase all in 1 year. But by the end of the 3-year increase, and there would be a $228 annual impact to a $300,000 homeowner. And then same thing with the vehicles. It would be a $40 annual impact for someone who owned 2 $15,000 vehicles. And on a monthly basis, $19 for the homeowner, and then $3 a month for the vehicles. And then I believe this was shown in the last meeting, but this is also just pointing out the effects of the agriculture and commercial too, but really what we would focus on is more the personal property and residential, because that's who would see the biggest impact between the 40-cent increase. And then this scenario here, this would just be looking at the transfer only. So if the district decided that you did not want to do any sort of overall tax increase at all, this scenario would be the transfer of 70 cents. And then again, same as earlier, you can just see how you would increase operating each year, and then we would just make the same corresponding reduction in debt service. So overall, the net increase between all the levies would be 0. then we have also updated, I know you've seen this chart a few times now, but we've updated it to just include some more information about what's going on in your surrounding districts. So a lot of these districts, as you can see, have done some sort of transfer or operating increase in the last 5 years. And then again, you'll notice Oak Grove is kind of towards the bottom half of all these districts. So even with, you know, the 70-cent increase, you would just remain right where you are. But with a 40-cent increase, you would be sitting right in between Blue Springs and Raymore, but you'd still kind of still be in that middle range of overall tax levy. And really too, with the transfer or increase, what it would really do is help kind of allocate those revenues to be more in line with your peer districts as well. And then I guess I may just pause there for any sort of discussion or questions on the numbers. I didn't want to go through every single number on there, but happy to explain them more.
Talk a little bit about, when you and I sat down, we went over our debt service schedule.
Yeah.
So I know one of the concerns,
Yeah.
one of the concerns we talked last meeting was just that concern if we do grow, do we have enough money then in debt service if we do transfer all 70 cents? And so she's got some great information here that I think made me feel a little comfortable that I was misconstruing a little bit myself. Mostly just knowing that those first few years is when it's gonna be slower. I have one already, so I can pass too. And then it bounces back to what we're used to.
Yeah. I apologize, I know this font is incredibly small, but I kind of developed a plan going out over multiple years just to help demonstrate the impact of the transfer. As you know, the less tax levy, the less revenue you have in debt service, which means you can't afford to make as big of payments on debt service or general obligation bonds in the future. And the general obligation bonds is what the district uses to fund their larger capital improvement projects. So these numbers, I'm not going to go through all of them, but really it's just proving that if we did the 70-cent transfer, and that it doesn't matter if we add the 40-cent increase on there, we would do the 70 cents regardless. If we do the 70-cent transfer over the next 3 years, the district could still afford to issue the remaining $10 million that you have already voted. And then you could afford another $25 million in 2033 or 8 years later, and then another $25 million in 2039, so 6 years later. And then if you look at that second to last column called annual excess deficit, if you kind of go down to 2039 or even 2043, you can see how those revenues the excess revenue starts to increase significantly. So I've structured this so that way you can kind of go back every 5-6 years with large no tax increase bond issues. But again, there's a lot more supporting details in the next 4 pages. But this just proves that even with the 70-cent transfer, you can still afford to do pretty significant projects in the next
So getting through
15 year- I
that
mean,
first
that's-
8
yeah.
years, which would leave us a little bit less, and then after that, it's back to every 5 or 6 years being able to.
Yeah.
What we've been used to.
Yep, so this is saying over the next 14 years, you can afford another $50 million of projects. So, I mean, really awesome news and,
14 years, 50 million?
Yep.
What you said?
oh, yep.
In terms of bond ideas, now that we have like the auxiliary gym, that was something that was a glaring need within the conference. Is there any other big bond ideas that are on the forefront?
New construction, not necessarily. I mean, there's some roofing, some HVAC, some bathroom remodels, some flooring at the high school. There's continued asphalt, so it's just a determination of which of those you bundle together and do a big project at once, or which of those we budget and do, summer projects throughout the year. So unless we run out of classroom space.
And that's my concern.
To
I
me,
think
would be classroom space
When
limits.
when you drive around town, you see the new developments, and some of them are multifamily dwellings, which of course are gonna bring more.
Right. Yeah,
more
so,
density.
so we've got room at the primary, like, our plan is to add another first grade this year, another second grade next year, we've got room for that. I mean,
I'm
we're
moving.
moving some auxiliary positions, maybe to be shared space, but we have some classroom for that. After that, we would need addition. At the elementary, you know, it'd be a discussion of, do we need more classrooms, or do we need to relocate pathways? Because we've got 8 classrooms back here. So that would be a discussion, and then at the middle school,
Early childhood, some of those.
yeah, it's already full. And, you know, that's one of those things, it's a discussion, I mean, I think we could open for more early childhood. I think the more room, it's always gonna be full, no matter what we put as a capacity, that need is just there, and there's a tension. It's just, it's been well supported for so many years from the state, which has been a positivity, but I think no matter how many classrooms we have there, we would have full capacity, whatever we do provide.
Oh, and central office is, I mean, it's full and overflowing and needs either renovations or additions for just the staff we have now.
For that, and we've had, I mean, on the plans for long-term, we're possibly build a new boardroom and connect it to central office and have a different boardroom with some additional offices, but, you know, that would maybe be that new classroom. So space, not, I don't think a new facility, we're not looking at a new building, or, it's space.
And it's just, it's really, because, and I hate to kick the can down the road but it's a tough guess, because I can assure you that Green Valley, 20 years ago, probably did not anticipate the growth that they've had. I mean, I know when we went to the State of the State thing, or State of the City, I think the information shared was 3% growth over the course of time. But, you know, all it takes is a development that changes it, and we're no longer there. And or some legislation that's the other non-crystal ball that you don't know. Open enrollment is on the docket in state senate. You know, if it passes, what does that do to revenues? You know, because you don't get all the revenue that flows with the kid. You only get the state revenue, which will be about $71.35 next year. That's a concern. You know, and then what will or won't be funded by the state legislature. You know, their record is not funded. And that 45,000, as I shared last time, guys, all that's going to do is get us to state mandated.
The piece we're missing though is we look at Green Valley and you can say the growth. The growth brought in more money for the school. Look at their school. They have semi trucks. They got giant school new built, and their tax levy is no higher than ours is. So when we talk about growth, we're acting like the money's gonna stay the same and the school's gonna have to grow. It grows together. That's why it's a percentage. So when Green Valley grew and all those houses came in, all that extra money went to the school, and they're able to build huge schools and
And they're
afford
busting
all.
at the seam, and they need more room right now.
And their community, they're building it different than ours. I mean, but they're not building fourplexes, they're building gated communities in Green Valley. That's, no one here is running for city office.
And we all went to the city meeting. Where is, I mean, yeah, I would love for Oak Grove to grow, but we don't even have the room that Green Valley had to build. So,
I mean, just White Oak Crossing took 20 years to fulfill the first zone, and just in the last 12 months have hit their zone 2 and 3, and now they're cut down 3rd Street and building 4 and 5. So just that right there, that's 5 times growth in one development.
Well, that one
and as it
development-
grows,
That one
it
development.
will grow.
Over by North.
But it won't,
Lakers.
because all those are little tiny homes.
Yeah.
Now, they can't build a
It's a
big home
different
in that crossing.
clientele of people with that.
Yeah, we're bringing in way more students than we are property value.
Yes.
Well,
The
and so that's
ratio's off.
another aspect to this, because like Pleasant Hill's in a different growth mindset. They built a ton of like $500,000 homes, and what's happened is new families can't afford them. So their actual enrollment is going down in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, because young families aren't buying these $500,000 houses because they can't afford them. So on Pleasant Hill's side, they actually have this really good growth because they're building these nice neighborhoods like you're talking about in Green Valley, but they're actually not bringing kids into the district.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
actually
the
a
point.
weird world out there where they have a declining enrollment, but their assessed evaluations are going through the roof, where here, unfortunately, we're going the other direction. We're
Well-
seeing increased enrollment, and we're seeing an okay, but like, where's the good growth and no growth in the last 20 years? What neighborhoods?
But we gotta look at our demographic also to where we're gonna ask our people to live in town that we want more money from you, when maybe they can't afford it. And what I'm trying to propose is we can fix most of our problems with a transfer. It's
Jason,
not gonna be the end-all,
Right,
be-all of the
right.
whole future of Oak Grove, but we're in a problem right now.
I think, Jason, you will create a problem if all you do is a transfer. Because you guys, unless some of you were younger kids, you didn't live through the circumstances of our district when we had trash bags running down to trash buckets because we couldn't afford roofs. We were busting at the seams, and we had offices turned into classrooms. We were in a circumstance where, because of no bonding capacity, we couldn't do anything. And it went years and years and years before we could start building things, before we finally built a new middle school. We don't want to be in a predicament like that down the road. And if all we do is a transfer, that's almost a guarantee. That'll put us in handcuffed position where we can't fund growth. Or we can't fund fixing maintenance issues that happen every day, because you don't know what that's gonna be. And anything and everything is gonna cost an arm and a leg anymore. It's just what it does. I mean, a prime example, just look at the difference in this parking lot from what it would have cost and what it now and like 2 years later. So I don't think, I mean, in my opinion, I think we should look at some sort of compromise between total 70-cent rollback and what amount of levy, because I don't think you can just leave money on the table. I think we have a great support from our school district, by our community, and I think when you look around, almost every district around us has asked for funding, and it's passed.
I think the other thing is not to confuse the buckets, right? The reason we're asking for a levy isn't so we can build new gyms. That's a bonding capacity thing, that's a different issue. The reason we're asking for money is because we can't afford to retain and keep good teachers.
Yeah,
That's the reason.
But the reason our $1.87 is so high is because we have bonded
Right.
2 big bonds in the last 5 years. That's why it's that high. Or we could have had that money in a different pot.
No,
I mean, that's why it's that high.
It'd be in the same pot.
Yeah,
We've been
we've
the same.
we've had the $1.86 levy for, I don't know how many years,
Yeah.
10, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, we didn't raise
Set-
that with it.
Set that,
No,
set there.
and nothing we built
We
wasn't
haven't
something
had a
that we
levy
needed.
increase in, what we guess, the
Mid-
eighties?
80s.
Yeah.
Since the eighties.
The other thing too is it's important to know, if we ended up doing a levy increase and we saw exponential growth and it brought in exponential revenue, we can always roll back. Lisa yearly looks at whether they need to roll back or not. They only ask, they do their budget and they only ask for what they need. So if their levy ceiling's high, but they know they don't need all of that revenue, they roll back for that year to the taxpayers. So the levy increase is to give us that money, but to allow us to hit that threshold, but we don't always have to. And you can always adjust your levy as you go to meet your needs.
So
And
if we
so-
take it to the voters, and Sny Valley's taking theirs as well, if the voters would reject it, then we get nothing, right? We don't get the transfer or the additional.
So my recommendation would be then, in August, we would put the levy transfer only on the ballot. It would still hit that same revenue
You'd
year,
still have
and it
time.
would just be in time. What we would have to do is we would be able to give teacher raises until we knew if that levy passed in August, the transfer. If it didn't pass in April, then my recommendation would be to go back with just the transfer in August, and then have discussions for another increase at a different time.
And again, the reason for the tax levy increase is because the 70 cents doesn't get us to where we need to get. I mean, we can talk about whether we should have done something 5 years ago, or should have switched it and not built this or not built that, but it doesn't change where we're at now, and the fact is that if we wanna get to that 45,000, we need $1.10,
Dr.
right?
McLean and I are doing Biscuits with the Boss. It's Ted Lasso thing, kind of goes with our theme this year. But we were in middle school today, and we had a veteran middle school teacher say last year, with some changes, that they actually looked for the first time at surrounding districts, and they were appalled to know that as the veteran teacher and how long she's been here, that she could go to Odessa and make significantly more money. And that really bothered her. She said, I knew Green Valley, Blue Springs, Independence. I knew I would make more money there, but I had no idea that we pay less, significantly less for our veteran teachers than Odessa does. And that was a concern to her, which
That's
is
an
a
embarrassment.
concern to us.
What's the enrollment numbers between Odessa and us?
Almost exactly. the
So
same.
how can they afford to pay their teachers more than we can? What are they doing different than we are?
It
It's
would
not
be,
larger.
student enrollment is not, but
Physically.
Physically,
I don't know,
it's
I don't know
gigantic.
population, I wouldn't be able to tell you what Odessa population is, businesses, you know, looking at the different
They
numbers of
have more
businesses.
industry than we
So they're
do.
getting more revenue than
And-
we are.
And
Pleasant Hill's identical in terms of population
School
enrollment,
size.
but their assessed evaluation is sky high. So the property value of their
Yeah, they're getting
town just brings in more revenue.
More revenue.
And that's all this
Yeah,
is.
square footage wise, Odessa would be, they have lots of commercial and agricultural
So their
property.
revenue's higher.
So they're gonna bring in
It's
additional.
just country homes.
And the
Just
other
country
thing
homes
is-
in their district.
The other thing is they're going on the cheap. Look at all their facilities.
Mm-hmm.
They're in desperate need of an upgrade in almost everything they've got.
So the 2.7 or 37 we get here, how does that project? I mean, if we're going to use this for salaries, then, you know, we project that we need a little over $2 million to do it now. But 5 years from now, that number's gonna be different.
Yeah.
So how does just the levy change in that money movement move forward in 29, 30? I mean, are we gonna be able to
That's
keep
where that
up?
percentage does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you,
Because
and you
you're
assume
maintaining
It's gonna
every,
continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you assume every 2 years you have a reassessment.
And we're gonna get
And-
but we're gonna get 5%. We're not gonna see a windfall. I mean, we're limited to a 5% growth
It's the
every
same way
year.
we've maintained our base salary for the last 10 years.
Okay, so we do
I mean,
feel
it's the
like
same-
at least
it's
we're
a
not,
sliding scale, yeah.
at least whatever we're giving them now, we can sustain that going forward
10 years.
based upon what we're doing.
Sure, and every year
Yeah,
too,
okay.
you know, we look at what we can afford, and then you have fluctuation in staff. You have veteran teachers retire, and you hire new, and, you know, there's always a good, you know,
But
7 to 8, well, but you have a 7-8% fluctuation just in new staff and salaries between staff. that kind of
But
stuff.
we have to take into account Senate Bill 727 and the statutory increase in salary over time. That may or may not have any funding from the state whatsoever. It's guaranteed next year. Well, there's no guarantee. It's supposed
Supposed to be.
we'll get that funding next year. After that, we won't be able to sustain, nor 100 or 200 districts in the state, the mandated salary that will be required, unless there's some sort of some sort of statutory changes that allows bypasses or whatever term you want to use, I don't know. We can't forget that either, and it's embarrassing that we, as a district our size, we should be able to fund that. Well, we shouldn't have to, but it is what it is. And everybody around us, and I told you guys this, I mean, when I was assistant sup, we were 55% state funding, 35% local, and 15 federal, and those two.
How do we fix that?
Can't.
Well, that,
That's what-
Run for Congress.
what,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
there's only one way to
Petition
fix
for
it. It's go to the local people, like a majority of districts have throughout the state, and said, the state's not funding it,
Yeah,
help us.
Well, and that's kind of like the
That's what we
statistics, I
need.
took them out, but the statistics I shared last time about, you know, where Missouri's ranked among other states and how much their state gives to public education. And it's not a statistic we want to be a part of.
No,
because
that's-
one of those
it's
ones.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
that's what we need to fix.
What's really changed in the state of education is that now, because education is getting so volatile with employment, other districts didn't used to honor all your years of service.
Yeah.
Now they do. The drawback is for Oak Grove is that over longevity,
Yeah.
our longevity scale for actual salary payment sucks.
Yeah, it's-
I hate to say that. And so as you get into longevity of years of service and advanced degrees, and you start working your way down, other neighboring districts are killing us. And that's where now the veteran teachers, they can leave us after 10 years and go to Odessa and make more money. They can go to Pleasant Hill and make more money. So it's not like they're leaving us to go to Blue Springs, Green Valley, big school. So there's two fights here. You're trying to fight to get your base up, but then also I want to see us move our longevity and continue to raise that, because when you start getting into columns and rows and it moves, we're not paying our longevity people long-term to stay here.
And
And
it's
you're
gonna
gonna
be-
keep losing those people, that hurts.
Yeah. And it's hard to compete with Blue Springs.
No, we can't.
Pleasantville.
It's not though,
We
it's
can't.
Odessa, it's
Yeah.
Pleasant
Yeah,
Hill.
we can't. And those are the
Well,
conversations
and-
I'm having with staff, is they know that we can't, but can we soften that enticement?
Well, and
Can we
I
soften
shared,
that?
I shared this last time, guys, and it's, I know you kind of slapped me around for it, but it's true. It's in 20, there's gonna be every place in the state, Missouri City with 18 kids will pay $45,000.
Yeah.
And granted, they're all gonna get 45 the rest of their life, but so a young person comes out of school, they can go to Missouri City with 18 kids or come to Oak Grove. I mean, it's that legislation, we can't forget that, guys. I would propose a minimum of 50-cent levy and not roll back as much, so that we could keep our debt service fund high.
And without having my laptop in front of me like the last time, I mean, 40 cents was the very low end of what we talked about last time. I
Mhm.
mean, we were actually kicking around 50 and 60.
I will tell you though, on the debt service, which actually feels good about what she did, I like seeing these numbers. To give you an idea, so Pleasant Hill just ran this because we're talking about adding on entire grade levels to schools. So an eight classroom addition to an existing building was about $9 million. So that's actually, if you think about that big scheme, that's not terrible. Because if we had to add 8 classrooms for $9 million, she's already showed us that we're gonna have the 9 million even by transferring 70 cents. So I see what you're saying about 70 cents out of it's too much, but looking at what our bonding capacities are, I know stuff's gonna cost more, I know what you're saying.
We also
But
remember,
knowing
we also
that-
have to remember too, putting it in operating, it just gives us more freedom to do what we need to do with it. We can use it for operating, we can use it for teacher salaries, or we can
Transfer to capital.
transfer it back to debt service and pay things off, or transfer to capital and do our own projects, you know. We can do, there's a lot less restrictions once it's in
But
operating.
debt service
And
does
these
hurt us.
assumptions too are ultra conservative, so next year, I'm just assuming 5% growth. We're still hearing that Jackson County is still trying to get those assessments up to what they should be at, so between everyone I've talked to, the lowest I've heard is 6%. Some people are thinking 8 up to the 15%, so 5% I would say is conservative, and then I'm assuming only 3% going forward, which is below what the district has grown the last 20 years, which would even include the Great Recession. So if you are getting significantly more growth, these numbers, the 25 million and 33, 25 and 39, those will either become larger or you'll be able to go do those things sooner. So again, the 70 cents is conservative, but I think that's the right approach. To Ms. Hampton's point of, if you are able to get that into operating, you have a lot more flexibility to allocate those revenues towards retaining top talent teachers, or if you didn't need the money, you could transfer that into debt service if down the road the need was
Or
facilities.
pay for a roof, outright.
So
instead of bonding.
2.3 million might be 2.7, 2.6.
Yeah, we
On
just-
the
Right, if
70 cents.
if
Yeah, we
this
just-
was 8%,
Yeah.
zero, just assume no
But
reassessment.
How
that
can
could
we
be
assume
higher,
any
but
more than
we
a
just don't know.
5%
We
growth?
can't,
With
because
it,
we're gonna
if
have
they're
to
gonna roll it back,
anyway.
they're gonna roll it back
We
anyway.
can't assume anything higher than 5%.
So 5% would be the
Yeah.
highest you
That's
do.
the max.
Yeah,
Well, but if we.
Unless
do a
it was
levy
new
increase
construction.
In a reassessment year, we do get to capture all of it. That's why we phase it over 3 years. We aren't bound by Hancock in a reassessment year if we're changing our levy.
Well, you both made good points. When you transfer the funds, you could transfer it back if something dramatic you needed 2 classrooms at the primary or a roof, or 3 HVAC units went south. That helps. I still think we ought to at least ask for a 50-cent levy increase,
What are you basing that off of?
because 40 cents is not enough.
Yeah, can we go, what does 40 cents
So,
look
so
like
we're, at-
again?
we're saying, if we believe we need all this, based on this needs list, if we say that these are our needs, we need 3.1 million, and doing the 40 increase and the 70-cent transfer, we get 3.4 million, based on very conservative reassessed evaluation
I
numbers.
have a question also. Why is Career Ladder on that? What, I mean, we started Career Ladder a couple of
Because we
years
don't
ago.
think the state's
Right
gonna
now,
continue
we
to
only
fund it.
pay, there's a state portion, and then there's a local portion.
They're
We
gonna
pay about,
stop.
that, yeah, it'll-
Okay.
it's
There's
pre-
no
it's-
way.
So, and if they don't, we're 350 ahead.
It's
So
predicted
we
to
buy a
go
roof for a
away.
parking lot.
It's predicted,
Which we could transfer back and
Is
pay down
Career
debt.
Ladder
Bond or
a-
whatever we need to, right?
What do the teachers think? Is that like the most amazing thing in the world, or would they rather have it raised?
They will vote.
well, they won't
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah, the career ladder's.
Yeah,
They
if-
would- they would-
If you
Real
took
bad.
away Career Ladder,
I mean,
basically everyone would go, and we gave them a raise, they would go back to where they were. They would not feel any money, they would not have to do the extra work, which, I mean, I get, we're all human, okay, so I get the same amount of money for less work, that's a positive thing.
But would they rather?
But
have
we'd
a-
lose those
Would
activities.
they rather have a bigger raise and not have Career Ladder? I mean, how would they weigh that?
You also
Because
gotta-
it's a money coming out of the pot.
Right,
But
same
If you said, would you rather have Career Ladder or a raise, they'd pick the raise.
You gotta also think about the benefit we get from Career Ladder.
Yeah,
So Career Ladder
That's
is-
true.
means they're creating all those programs and things that we didn't
Yeah.
have, that didn't exist, right? So
And the average
there's a
teacher's,
mutual
what,
benefit
making
there
$4,000 or
with that.
$5,000? I mean,
But some
Basically,
of
it's
them are great,
5,000,
but some of them
3,000,
are
or
just
1,500,
because people are
based on
picking
their
like,
So
oh,
if
I
you're-
wanna go walk around the track. Is that really beneficial to a student, and a teacher's like, I'm just gonna do this because I'm gonna make more money?
I think
We
our
need to have
administration-
beneficial Career Ladder, not just fluff out there.
Jason,
My
I-
opinion.
They're all approved.
For
I mean,
one,
now you
I
gotta
know.
send to it.
But how do you cut out the fluff is what I'm saying.
I think they've already came and presented. Our staff had presented and administrators have said, it's a great tool. I argued with legislators, give us the money, but
Mhm.
that didn't happen. So, I get what you're saying too.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Some of it is probably amazing, and some
Yeah.
of it probably isn't.
I think
That's what I'm saying.
it's all really good, because again, it has to go through the approval
The,
process.
the difficult part, because like I'll tell you right now, Pleasant Hill doesn't do it. I can't get teachers to do anything above and beyond.
Yeah.
If they are clocking in and clocking out, and there's nothing after school unless I can pay them. And so that piece right there sells itself, because we're at least getting teachers to do something with students, you know, kind of on their time. And honestly, when you start, I know what you're saying, there is some fluff
Yeah.
in there, but that's where you know, those conversations can be holding administrators more accountable for approving,
Yeah.
you know, walk around the track for $5,000. I mean, I know what you're saying, but
But part of that, but keep in mind, part of that walk around the track was parental involvement, and you're walking around you're seeing parents and teachers
It was a
type
family.
of conversations
Yeah.
that
I
aren't
just-
happening.
It's just something that was off the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
I'm-
But look at,
not
for
digging deep, but-
to give somebody a $5,000 raise, it's costing us a little over $2 million.
Yeah,
Career Ladder.
5,900.
If
Yeah, it's
for
pennies compared.
Career
But that-
Ladder, we're
but that
spending
includes-
$350, we're getting state funds, and those teachers that really want that extra money
Yeah.
are finding an avenue to do it, and it's only costing us $350,000.
Right. Good
The
point.
salary increase part also includes the difference of increase that we would be paying in retirement. So there's the retirement and benefits piece there too.
I just didn't know that the state portion was going away. That was my question.
It was guaranteed for a certain number of years. It was Governor Parsons' big push. So now with the new governor, we're just unsure. Right now, the state has excess funds, so there's some talk on maybe it will stay for another year or two while the state has excess funds, but then we're back to them probably not being able to afford it. So we've just been advised to be cautious the next years going forward with it.
And that's all that is, it's just being cautious
Right.
going forward. And so, once again, if they do fund it, well, we have extra money. You know,
And I believe, is it Senate Bill 727 was projected to cost an additional, like 700 or 800
Remember
million.
the total, it was a lot.
And I think this next year they've allocated 1.3. Who's paying for that? We are. Districts throughout the state. And we can't fix that. We can only fix what we can do right here in our community. And that's what, that one list that you showed, there's so many of those districts have done. They've gone back to their community. And the reason I said 50% or 50 cents instead of 40 is we don't know. That's the piece we don't know. Because we don't know if statutorily, we have to fund that salary base. Can we do it with 40 cents? I bet not. If we don't get state, if the
But
state
if we
doesn't
pass
fund
this
it.
and if this passes and we change our tax levy to the salary schedule that we've created, we'll meet that. Oops, this one. We'll meet that. The base of 45 and the master's plus whatever, the 48.
10 years, Masters Plus would be 48,000 minimum,
Yeah,
then an increment of 1,000 every year after that.
and we'll meet that. We'll, in our longevity, we'll have to do the steps to get the increment, and then again, I'd really like to look at the master's plus 10 more and really beef up that other longevity piece. But I don't know enough to know if that passes, what are the steps for the bachelor's? Is it 1,000 too?
Yes. 3 years, I think we did $1,000.
So we're not quite there, we would have to be,
It put us pretty close.
but it'd be a heck of a lot closer
It
than we
put
are
us
now.
pretty close.
It's a lot closer than we are now.
And my point is, guys, again, I was on those call committees back when the phone was technology. And we called everybody, like 1983, I think it was, maybe 84, somewhere in that vicinity. We haven't asked for a tax increase since then. And that's, I need a calculator to figure out how many years that's been. 40, I don't know. That's a long time. And I think my fear is because of the tax environment we're in, no thanks to Jackson County, and their inept approach to everything they try to do, and succeed in nothing. You can put that in the paper too, I'm okay with it. I just came from there today. And I, no offense, Giovanna, probably everything you do is awesome. It's just.
I don't work for the county, so.
Yeah, well, thank you, but, that's an issue, and I'm worried, I worry if you ask for 40 and then we need, wow, I wish we'd asked for 50, or I wish we'd asked for 70. Going back is not gonna be as easy as asking for an amount the first time. I'm just saying.
I don't disagree with you, but I do think the way we've gone about it shows some pragmatism, right? In other words, this is what we want to raise, this is what we have to do to accomplish it, this is all we're asking for. I think it's, I do think we've been on the board for a while, I do think we handled it, and we could always look back, in hindsight's 20/20, and say, hey, we do this, or we don't do this, or we should have done this, or we could have built this and not built this, if we hadn't built this, we could have done this. Easy to armchair quarterback that. But again, like I said, this is what we think we need to do because we're struggling to keep teachers, to maintain teachers' longevity, all those kind of things, and the way to do it is to start saying, okay, we think we need to get to here, here's what it's gonna take to do that. And I think it's a very practical approach to doing that. I mean, I get it, I'm very sensitive to raising taxes, and I don't love the idea of doing it, but,
Which is why we haven't done it since the mid-eighties.
But
yeah.
we have to tell the public though, that this isn't our deal, that our base will go to 45,000, whether we move it there or not. Our base will go to 45,000 statutory, as the base is 38 right now. Well, actually 25 still statutory. It's the law, and so we're gonna have to find a way to fund it. And we can't count on the state to fund it, we've seen that. And I think we have to, the points we've gotta make is that this is a statutory change. Our base is gonna go to 45,000, it really should be a lot more. And we have no guarantee of funding to get to that. And that we're, by the way, we're 50th in the nation in funding for education, and 50th in beginning teacher salary, and 45th in average teacher salary.
So does this make us competitive? If we do the 70 cent, does it make us competitive with Odessa? If we do the 70 cents transfer and the 40 cents, are we at that point competitive or not?
We will pass them unless legislation comes into play to require it.
But if
And then we want to be equal.
But if legislation comes in a requirement and we don't have this in place already, the difference will be is they'll have to raise the bottom, but they won't be able to do anything at the top. So you're gonna take money out of that pot, they're gonna have to
Yeah, then all your
bring that,
teachers,
bring that bottom up, and they're not gonna be able to do anything for the people.
Because there's not a huge statutory
There's
requirement
only
for
so much
5 years,
money.
10 years. Those
So
aren't,
it creates-
those
Us
are
getting
hard.
ahead of it
so it creates major
allows us to
Understood,
competition.
I was
kind of
just
fill
trying
the
to
whole
say,
bid all the way up.
if,
No, it's a great
Yeah.
question.
No,
yeah.
it will put us,
It's a scary gamble with all the Jackson County stuff. I think people are gonna see tax increase. I might be wrong, I hope I am wrong. I'm just trying to think outside the box, is all I'm doing.
I know, Jason, I appreciate your being from, but I think we're at a point where we're getting too late.
We should have done it 5 years ago.
Yes.
Quite frankly.
Just what she's proposing is exactly your fear, right? Like, we put this on April
And then we
and
do
you
August.
get a no, oh, we're just gonna August and we're gonna get
Then
what
what do we do?
you're asking for at that point. Well, then we have to recollect and then educate and then ask again.
Yeah.
Because part of this too, being an April vote, it's the lowest voter
Yeah,
turnout you see.
300 people.
And
show
so
up.
the thing about it is though, if we within our constituents are backing this up and we explain to the constituents, this is the reason why, I would think that honestly, it's gonna vastly outweigh than just people just randomly showing up in April to vote. Because like our voting numbers are so low in April anyway, it's crazy to me. Because like even with the person last April who got the most votes, we were still almost at 50% less
Oh,
votes
no.
than what Pleasant Hill.
But that was but the stadium initiative was on that, now
That's
it's.
why.
And that was even higher. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But we were still
Our
still
national
lower than
vote.
Pleasant Hill even.
Correct,
And we had the stadium initiative.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because like in the years past, when I've compared our voting in April of Oak Grove versus like Pleasant Hill and looking to see how many votes we're getting in April. So I know what you're saying, but the sad thing is the uneducated voter,
Won't
they're
show up.
they're probably not even gonna know this is going on. I mean, I hate to say that because you want people to be involved, and have their own voice. But I mean, for how politicized the stadium vote is, something like this, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if less than
300 people. Show up.
I hate to say that, but
It'll be less, it'll be way less than 40%. It
Yeah.
might be closer to 30. Is it +1?
is it
50
for
plus
April?
one?
What's the?
Yeah, simple majority.
It's 51-49.
Yeah.
But it's one more vote than,
And August is a little different. It's August
It would be the same for
It is-
operating.
For operating, okay.
Plus we have a marketing.
what about the
department.
levy though?
We didn't have that before. I
The
mean,
same.
I mean,
It
that's
would be the
huge.
same, because
I'm just saying
even with
that
the
it's
transfers,
relevant when you're
How you-
talking
how
about.
you
just
Yeah.
technically
Yeah.
an operating increase, so the approval rate would be the same in April or in
And not
August.
only that.
So it's just +1.
The
In other
district
words,
Yep,
at large.
50%.
I don't think, I
Yeah,
think
but
we're
the House
underplaying
and
how
Senate,
huge
it's
that
always got-
is to this election, though, that communication piece, now that we have that tool at our discretion. When Schlick is talking about the educated voter, I mean, just look at a presidential election, there are quote educated voters are just repeating what they saw in a commercial, and we have the ability to create commercials.
But we are limited in what we can
We
say.
can only,
as a-
we cannot
as a
advertise for
board.
a yes or no vote. We can only give facts and encourage people to show up to vote.
But Giovanna can run a committee that can say yes.
Yes.
Can deal. And that can be funded and it could send out vote yes stuff with proper,
They can.
Volunteers
We can
and
send out-
funding.
We can send out what our needs are and why we're asking for it and what we plan to send the money for, and we can ask people to please come vote.
I should know this. What is it, April 4th, 3rd?
The what?
Or the
It's
Tuesdays, yeah.
Yeah, because the Mondays, it's weird. Oh, because we need to change. Yeah.
A
It's
big thing of
April
who I am is
eighth,
not being
thank you.
afraid of
April
a no. However, in this conversation, I think Jason makes so many good points on the fear factor of it that a lot of ways I lean towards what he's saying. And I just want to go back to things we've said in the past, is I don't undervalue our non-teaching staff, but I think when it comes to language, if that was just saying teachers instead of employees, it really helps.
Well, we
I don't
would
want
say,
to look like the bad guy and say
No.
not for.
no, we would say to
That's
raise
really why
raise
I'm
our
interested
base
in
teacher
this.
salary to 45,000. And that will be one of our campaigns, and that's the whole push to this, is to raise, well, the other trickles behind it. The whole push is to raise our certified teacher salary pay to 45,000.
What's the blah, blah, blah ballot? Put that up there.
So remember that everything highlighted is what we adjust, everything else is legal.
That
jargon.
right there, that bottom, increased compensation for employees, that's what I'm, right there, how that reads. I just think, and again,
We
no
can- we can
offense, I don't
put-
wanna be the bad guy here, but I think paras are here not just for the money. I think if they can get paid someplace else, then they can easily make it at any employment in this general area. They're here because their kids are here.
Well, that can,
They're not
that can
gonna
read,
leave.
that can read our campaign, that can read to raise teacher pay to $45,000. I can read that.
I just say.
That's,
going
that's
up
why I
against the
want
fire
to see it, so
department.
what can we say?
Yeah, and I think,
I don't,
and I don't know if you put a number there,
I mean, I
when
don't- I
you
don't-
say increased
I think if
compensation
you
for
ask the
teachers.
layman who works at a school, they think it's 98% teachers.
Yeah,
That's
they're,
true.
they're not gonna
So,
realize.
I don't
I don't think
think
they're
there's gonna
gonna
be
read
too
that
many
in
people
depth.
overthink that. I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize
They're
how
gonna
much
skip
support
over that
staff
part.
there is and paras and those kind of things, and so I think,
No.
I think it'll be assumed to be teachers.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for this, because unfortunately, there could be people who go to the polls who make $38,000 and think 45 is too much.
You're
Yeah.
right.
And vote
Yeah,
against
I
it.
don't think you put a
Sure.
number value to it, because you
For sure.
will, you'll alienate people below that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good luck, me too.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Or they
true.
can become teachers, that's what we need.
Exactly.
Because we need more teachers.
Yes.
15% of total what you're asking, right? And so it's not,
So what,
it's 15 of percent of the total
But
budget that you're asking.
that only accounts for like
no, no, it's a
$300,000.
15% increase
I thought it was
raise.
like 300,000 of 2 million.
So of what we're needing and just salaries, 1.7 is for the teacher pay, 300,000 is for all the
I understand.
non-certified.
I don't know if we can answer this question, but if we put it at 40 cents, when are we going back and asking for more?
That's my problem.
That's my.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can answer that. I mean, are we at a minimum of 5 to 7 years, or we could be at 3? I mean, if,
Well,
and
state
we
statute-
can't take into
it
factor
determines-
that all hell's break loose.
It
But just
determines-
as things stay normal, are we 5 to 7 years before we would ask for this again?
Can't be another 40.
There's too many
Yeah, I don't think it's 40.
there's too many unknowns
All right.
that impact our revenue, from state to assessed evaluation, to the Jackson County Commissioners, to the people that move in, the growth of Oak Grove. There's too many unknowns for us to be able to say what's gonna happen and that in 10 years. That's public education budget. I would love in March and April and May and June during my budgeting season, I would love to know the dollar amount that we're gonna receive in revenue. It'd make budgeting a whole lot easier. But no school has that luxury. So there's just too many unknowns for us to be able to say. Right now, we can say that these are our needs and that this will get us there. And I'm confident that in the rest of my tenure, this will be sufficient. And I hope, I don't know, if the board keeps me, I've got 5 to 7 years left till I can retire. So, but 5 to 7 years is a significant amount of time. I don't know. I mean, when I was in Wellington and we did the $1.25 tax levy, a lot of voters said, better be good, because it's the only time I'm voting for it. So they were hopeful that $1.25 was gonna last
30 years.
however long.
I don't remember the levy increase from the 80s, but it's been a long time. And I guess that's my concern is, I don't know, and a lot of our community weren't even born in the 80s, so they have no idea when the last time was, but I just don't, 5 or 7 years, people remember.
Mhm.
I don't wanna go back 5 or 7 years, and say, we should ask for more, we need more money.
I agree with Coach too on just, are we afraid that that extra 10 cents will get a no from the voter, or
For me, it's,
are we gonna misuse those funds?
it's transparency and meeting our needs. So for me, I feel like we have a little bit of leeway in saying that we were only increasing the 5%, 3% in assessed valuation growth. That's conservative. And then I also feel like, when we look at our needs, that new positions of 550,000, there's a leeway in there. Transferring 250,000 to Fund 4 for facility needs, there's leeway there. So I feel like there's leeway in here to make up for our needs. And I just, at what point do we go to, I don't want a backlash from community to say, as they're watching and listening to these things, to say, we really only needed 40 cents, you felt like we asked for 50. I'm gonna vote no because it's too much. I feel like the needs that we have are pretty accurate, and then the amount of money to get that is pretty black and white and transparent, and doing anything more just scares me a little bit. Justified.
We as a board need to be able to look a taxpayer in the eye and go, why did you ask for this?
Can we pay
And if you can say 40 cents did it, and that's what we need, I think that's fair. If I have to justify, well, the other 10's just fluff in case it goes bad.
Yeah, and
You know.
even new positions, we're acting like we're gonna hire 10 extra teachers in 3 years? Probably
Well,
not.
the other piece is, we already have new positions. Will we be able to pay them without this levy increase? The social workers, and we need more. Will,
That, it's.
without this.
Without this, we can maintain where we're at with the grants we have, but we can't give raises. So without this, if this doesn't pass, and then we go back for a levy increase in August, transfer, sorry. If we go back in August and ask just for the transfer, that would determine if we give raises or not. If we do not change anything now, we'll survive next year, but we can't give raises.
And not a little, you're saying we would stay low, we would stay where we're at,
We would stay where we're at this year.
which would make us less competitive.
And guys, I
That'd be
guarantee you,
terrible.
if I were an administrator in any building, I would be asking her for additional positions already. There's a lot of things that we need, we don't have because we can't afford it. And it's, that's why I think, no offense, I have the great utmost respect for you and your budgetary skills along with all your skills. But I'm not sure that number is accurate.
And my fear with Coach is, first, I just like shiny objects, like, I'm so excited for this gym expansion, even though I wasn't part of that. I mean, it just looks so neat. You travel around the conference and in the state, and you look at other high schools, and we're gonna have this big pretty thing. And I don't want future pretty things to be affected by it. So I don't want us, I would like to have enough money to pay what we need to pay for our teachers and staff, and not touch those future pretty things in the bond initiatives.
Well, and guys, it's stuff happens every day. I mean, the band came here. I was embarrassed that they needed that much money to fund. I'm sure choir can tell you the same. Probably every sport would ask the same. Technology is never enough money for technology. Tomorrow we'll be behind where we were yesterday, and there's just.
Yeah, this doesn't look at any general supply at all. This is just looking at salaries.
And what happens when all those Chromebooks go south from, I'm just saying, this is something, because again, long time goes by, you don't wanna come back and ask the people, hey, we want some more money. I think 50
Look at the
cents.
debate we're having, and we haven't asked for it in 40 years.
Correct.
How many you got in your tech staff?
Where are we setting that right now? Like, we're having continued.
I just hired my seventh.
Are we really that
See what
far
I'm
apart?
saying? I'm saying,
50, I
Can
don't
we
know.
find out what conversation we need to have?
It's a shared
No,
secretary, but it's,
where
I got a
everybody's-
tech secretary. That felt good.
but unfortunately, our administrative team right now has been so used to, no offense, Mr. Darty, but being nickel and dime to death, they're afraid to ask for
They don't ask for nothing.
ask for a paperweight, or the paper underneath it. But,
Well, like she said, it was needs, it wasn't even wish list, it was,
yeah,
that was when she came in, it was, I need needs, not vision.
Evaluation.
Yeah, I mean,
I tend to, just how I think, and we talked about this a little bit about last time, I lean towards asking because I think you probably only get to ask once. And I don't think 40 cents or 50 cents, if you're the kind of person that doesn't want a tax increase, you're gonna vote no whether it's 40 or 50. If you're the kind of person that's gonna afford, if you ever voted to somebody that said, well, if they'd just asked for 10 cents less, I would have probably voted yes. I mean,
great
it
point.
just doesn't, it's not
Great.
logical.
But how do you sell that to the public? We just need this money just because it's better in the school's pocket than yours when you don't really need it. So if
But
you
we
ask
do,
for too
Jason, we
much,
do.
I know, but if you're a person that's on the fence, then if you're just asking for a number just because you just think about it in your mind, then that's not us being
But-
good constituents to our
But
public.
on the other side
It
of it,
really isn't.
our superintendent's frugal nature has not accounted for, our tech department is a ghost compared to others. I mean, the classroom teachers that we have, specialty courses, we don't have them. I mean,
Your point's very well
It
taken.
is.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
You're
it
going to
it
the
well
public and
taken.
saying, we need, if you look at our operating levy, 30-some% increase to survive. And now you want to say, we need a 50% increase,
I didn't say 50%, I said 50 cents. 50 cents.
50 cents.
Instead of the 40-cent levy.
Yes, And I think, Mindy, if you, Mrs. Hampton, if the administrative team got together and maintenance staff and all staff and said, hey, you know, yeah, I would like this, and I'd like that, and I'd like that, you'd exceed that 3.1 something, you'd get to 50 cents.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I think,
I
why
mean,
not plan?
absolutely, there's all kinds of things. Today in our Biscuits with the Boss, one of the librarians said, you know, she said, the budget since 2008 for the library has been $7,800 every year. She said, the cost of books have gone up so much, she said, I'm purchasing less and less and less because the budget I'm given, and kids, the new books that come out only come out in hardback, and so she said, and I said, I've never even considered like a indexed, you know, for your general supplies for a lot of those specialized budgets, and a CPI, essentially a growth index because of cost of what
Absolutely.
everything costs right now. So all of our general supplies are already very small, but they're purchasing less because of cost of everything. So yeah, we could sit here and we could wish big, and we could take that 3.4 million in need and
No, you're not
3.1,
wishing big.
and we could,
That's not big. It's adequate. We're
No,
wishing adequate.
oh,
If
to
you've
get
got
to-
7 staff members, you've got 4.
yeah, to get to basic, yeah, you're absolutely right. Just trying to find that balance of being good stewards of our money and what we're asking for, but
But I don't wanna lowball things because we're not where Oak Grove needs to be. We're better, we're doing great with limited funding. We would do better, if we had more funds to do it. I would.
well, I'll just go around and ask, like, what are your thoughts, Jeff? What do you think you're in support of? Or what is your
I
absolute
like the
minimum?
math to be able to sit down with somebody and say, this is what we need. I don't think it's fair to ask for more than you. I think back to my own personal budget. If this is what it's gonna cost to buy windows, then tell me what I gotta spend. But, you know, I don't need bigger windows, just, what's it gonna cost? And if that's what you need, then I'll give it to you, but don't ask for more because you want curtains too. Bad analogy, but I think we gotta ask for what we need. I'm with you, it's hard to go back and ask for more, but I'm picturing a graphic. At some point, we gotta ask for the amount that the voter will give us and where those lines cross. And if we miss this, we're in trouble. And if we miss it short, we at least survive. If we miss it too high and we don't pass this, we're having a lot more longer conversations later at night about bigger problems. I don't think it's a problem to go back to someone in 3 to 5 years and ask for more. It might be harder, but to say, I was being fiscally responsible. I only took 40 cents because that's all we needed at the time. I didn't get an extra 20, to redo the lounge and the Mindy's decorating budget went up. We don't have that. So we're just being fiscally responsible. And if I come back and ask you for more than 3 to 5 years, that's fine. At least I saved you money over the last 3 to 5 you didn't spend that we didn't need.
Well, and if those unknowns come to fruition, then we can say, this
Yeah.
happened, and so that's
That's
why
why.
we need to.
And if that's 3 to 5 years from now, that's probably what we should have been doing. We shouldn't have gone 40 years before making this decision and doing this.
Well, the fire department doesn't
Yeah.
go along with yours.
Yeah.
They ask all the time, right?
Well, no,
At least more regular.
yeah, I think the last time theirs passed was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they're going back in. They're going back in it again, which is probably, and not as a large an amount, which is probably what we should be doing more of. Saying, hey, we're going to ask for more again, but I just don't want to ask in a year and a half or 2 years. If we can get 3 to 5, I'm okay with that.
I think you're both right, because I definitely sit on the fence of, hey, what do we need, and let's ask for what we need. 100% agree with you, let's not ask for what we need. I think what Randy is saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is he's concerned with, as an administrator and as a teacher and as people who have to steward this money and think they've been trained to think small, no offense, and so they're not asking for what they really need. They're asking for the minimum that they think they can get away with needing.
Right.
In other words, if they really looked at it, so in other words, you may not know off the top of your head, but if I asked you, if we did go 50 cents, what's the next thing on the list?
Oh.
What's the next thing on the list? In
It
other
would
words,
be general supply budgets to increase a certain percent.
give every teacher an extra $1,000 in there, or whatever that math is.
Buildings, that goes by building lots.
And it's just, how many years did you and Booster Club pay for all the uniforms we had?
Yeah, the budget hasn't
And
changed.
just things like that, I mean,
It
it's.
breaks my heart every year to see GoFundMes and these Amazon wish lists from teachers because
Exactly.
we don't give them the
They'll
proper
always
supplies.
do that, they always will, because the difference of, you know, getting things to decorate for their classrooms that they get to keep versus the district buys it, it stays. So there's always gonna be a little bit of that, but,
And the
but when
foundation,
there's markers and crayons and glue and scissors on there,
and the
that's,
foundation gave $35,000 in teacher grants this year. I mean, you know, who knows how many other individual grants teachers have? That's a lowball fee. I'm sorry, I'm just saying.
What does 10 cents add?
that's, we had that here.
But if you're saying that extra 10 cents is going to go to general fund things, it's not going to give us extra technology staff or extra.
Yeah, it would.
It allows it for it, it just,
It
it
could.
creates it to
It
where
should.
it could.
Or social workers, or,
You see, the hard part, guys, I mean, this is something that we're trying to get our revenue, or our reserves.
My calculations were a little different than
There's,
yours.
I'll pull that up while you,
Okay,
and be back.
We've also got to think about a demographic. Like you said, those people moving into those $500,000 houses probably have a lot of extra money just to be like, oh, that's no big
That's,
deal.
I don't think that's
Look
ever
at some
true.
of the people that are living in our town, and we're gonna go ask for.
I think everyone,
and really though,
it
Mo-
doesn't matter if you're living in a $500,000 home or a $50,000
Some
home,
people.
home, you live to your means.
it sounded like,
The
and
majority of
you'd
people.
have to pull that up again, but it was like what, $40 a month? Less, no, it was less than that, wasn't it? For the 40 cents.
yeah,
It was
well,
like $20 a month.
Yeah,
This
like 20.
city
It's $19 a
tried
month.
$25
a
a
1
month.
cent gas tax and it failed.
Yeah,
And people
but
love Oak Grove,
I know
and they didn't pass that.
that affects every single person when the majority of people living in this town don't own their home.
It's not true.
That's what I said.
The majority of
Yeah,
people.
majority of them
Yeah.
do. There's a certain percentage that don't, but they're just,
They're
yeah,
renting.
yeah.
I'll retract.
Sorry.
I think it's hard to look at the monthly though, when you pay your taxes yearly, right?
For sure.
More people are gonna be looking at, this is what my impact is gonna be.
Right.
They're not gonna be looking
What's
at,
my
it's
yearly
$19 a
and my
month.
monthly?
They're gonna look at, okay, it's $220.
But anybody with escrow is gonna pay it by the month.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but it's still.
Which
gonna
is the
come out
majority
one
of the
time a year.
people in this town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is true.
But
Yeah.
personal property taxes is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know,
I mean,
those
the
impact, I bought a car, you
vehicles-
traded a car, I mean, the $40 impact on that.
And guys, I hate to keep bringing up the state, but there is, I think there was 17 different pieces of legislation that were called for the complete elimination of personal property taxes.
Yeah, let me go
So
into it.
that's not, I mean, that may go away.
That'd be a
And your
huge-
car values go down.
Yeah.
You know, unlike your house values go up, your car values will go down at some point. So you will see it,
But Missouri's one of
it
the-
probably stay the same if it went, up- most of them would not, if you didn't buy a different car, $40 would probably be the same you paid the year before. You know.
I mean, I'm thoroughly convinced I'm okay with the rollback now, the way you guys explained it, I like that. I would ask minimum 50 cents.
Did the over 65 pass?
It was actually 62, it was 65, changed to 62. If you're
Oh, that's
62
good.
years of age now,
That's passed.
you can put in,
File,
you can put in a freeze to where your property, your home will, and it's real property, not personal property, your real property will not increase as long as you own that home and stay in that home, unless you do like drastic
Those are
renovations.
numbers we don't have any idea what that looks
Uh,
like.
didn't
Is
we
there an
do-
income
we
requirement
did
to
a
that?
demographic
No,
study.
there was 500,000.
I was
The
told.
Senate
Yeah.
Bill
And
190
I think
cleanup
it came
took
back
that one.
with the majority of Oak Grove.
So some
Now
guy
you
would,
could-
Of
you could
retirement
eliminate
age. and
$2 million
$2
house and have, and have a $1 million
Yeah.
the
income,
city did one.
and we're
they
gonna
said
freeze
that
your
was-
taxes.
Yes.
for your
Ken
benefit.
In
McLean's,
just 2 years.
$8.7 million home will be frozen.
Well, and also when they did that.
No relation.
demographic,
Yeah.
To either one of us.
Yeah.
they're-
Spelled the same as mine, but,
I mean, you
yeah.
have that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm glad we're helping.
yeah.
You wanna come
So
with that?
here's the bottom line, next meeting, is it next week, right?
It's the 10th.
Right, we have to make a
No,
decision, 18th, we have to make a decision as a board as to what we wanna
We have
do.
to we have to prove bond language.
Right. Personally, I would like to see a couple options. One, this obviously being the minimum option. I'd love to see an option with 50 cents and what will we get for that? In other words, does that get us new Chromebooks every 3 years, or whatever that looks like? It needs to be probably something better than it'll go into a general fund.
No.
Is there something specific we can point to that
It's
extra 10
technology,
cents?
And
it's
supplies.
technology,
If you-
technology staff.
If you wanna do 50 cents, then you need to do, because I think you're right, what you did here to get to 40, you
Right.
need the same math done to get to 50
Right.
and justify
That's
why
what
it's
I mean,
done.
yeah.
And
maybe
see if those changes
I mean,
are worth it.
There's a million things we've talked about. I mean, we talked about security and passkeys. We don't have those on all doors currently. I mean, what does that look like? Is that something
It's very
that, I mean,
expensive.
well, I know, but I'm
Yeah, I
saying,
know.
but there are things we need that we need to figure out how to pay for, to Randy's point. That we as a board should be able to look at and go, okay, here's the minimum we think we need to go to get the salaries and get these things taken care of. Here's, if we wanna go for 50 cents, that'll get us salaries, that'll get us, I'm just guessing, key card access and new laptops. And if we go to here, it's gonna get us X. That's what I'd love to see, because that's how we're gonna be able to make an educated decision to say, hey, but please don't say 10 cents more general fund,
Mhm.
you know, because I don't
And
think
that's why we,
that's not a
why we
story we
went to
can
the
tell.
higher.
That's not something I can take to somebody, that I can take to people in my family that live in the town, that are gonna see that $250 increase as a big deal, and say, well, some of it's gonna go into a fund. Even though I could probably personally tell them
As
what I
many
think.
people talk to the public or people you know about this and what their opinion was? Because most of the people I've asked, like just generic, even people who live in different towns that I work with, and they're like, that probably will pass. Just because of all the Jackson
Yeah.
County
There's
stuff.
so much negativity.
That's the negativity.
That said, it passed in Great Valley,
True.
That's last year.
passed in Blue Springs, passed in Fort Osage.
This community over the years has done a really good job of supporting the school system.
We just need to come up with a number.
Yeah.
10 cents, an additional 10 cents, it would add around $260,000 of additional revenue per year, but in this case, since we are planning to do over 3 years, it does get a little bit more complicated because it'd matter what year you
Which year you add
decided
it to.
to add that increase
The
to.
first year, the
So
second.
I've done it, like the way I've done these calculations is to try to minimize the impact to taxpayers and try to increase those, have those increases more consistent over 3 years versus big jumps in 1 year. So that's the way I've done the calculations, and by that mindset, you would see around $260,000 more revenue per 10 cents.
And would you just add 5,000 to those later years, or 5 cents to those later years, I guess? Instead
Yeah,
of doing,
since with the 40 cents, I did 50, 30, 30. The way I did it was I added 40 cents to the last year because with the mindset of trying to capture potentially
Right.
higher growth as well.
so you go
Right.
50,
So
So you
30.
do 50, 30, 40.
50, 30, 40.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
50, 30, 40.
and then so the overall impact then would be $1.20. Like technically, it's $1.20 operating
Change to our
increase.
operating line, 70
But
cents
the
of it a
net
transfer.
impact would be 50 cents because of our corresponding reductions in debt service.
Yeah, I mean, $260,000 gives, $50,000 plus to each building per year for
But I think
supplies.
we have to make that kind of, I don't think we can just say, hey, this is the way to building improvements, because we already have a bond.
No, it'd
People are
be-
seeing pictures of the new
Yeah.
gym on the front page, and they see all that, and they think,
That's
well,
what,
we're building a new.
Look how much money they have.
Most people don't understand the difference between a bond and a levy. They absolutely don't, and so,
Bonded, yeah.
yeah, so.
Just because we can build a building, we can't pay the teachers to be in there all day.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or the janitors to clean it.
And that's a projection you have to look at too. What has our increased square footage cost us? What will
Oh,
our
yeah.
increased square footage cost us?
Because you gotta add staff to,
When can our assessed valuation take place on the new addition?
Pretty cool, power.
When would you see the impact?
Yes,
after it's completed.
So
Is that what you mean?
yeah, so when can we, our assessed valuation is gonna go up with that new addition to the building. When can that
The
be
assessed
accounted for?
evaluation is based on the taxpayers of Oak Grove, it's not our building, we
Not
don't get
anything to do
assessed,
with
our
us.
buildings,
No,
no,
no, okay.
our
It's
insurance,
the districts.
our
Yeah.
insurance premium will go up because our square footage went up, so our insurance bill will increase.
And the utility bills will go.
But, yeah, that assessed evaluation is what Jackson County assesses every home, commercial,
Yeah, so it has
property,
nothing to
real.
do with our building.
No.
No, our schools, we have to be sitting in trailers and it'd be the same.
Yeah,
Well, I
You
just,
could almost argue by adding on another gym, a weight room, and a wrestling room, like you could add another custodian to the high school immediately,
Easy.
because of just that.
easily.
And so now,
Yeah.
that's where that 550,000 starts thinking of,
yeah, we're bigger than.
Well, and again, the projection of, I knew when we added the PAC, it was a significant amount to the energy cost of the district.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the 18th, I'm gonna bring you this at 40 cents and 50 cents, and I'm gonna bring you this at 40 cents and 50 cents. And then we'll have to vote,
And then
because
also
we'll be
bring us.
determining this at 40 cents or 50 cents.
Right.
But you're gonna bring
But
us
you're also
all
gonna
this.
bring us, you had a slide there that shows what the 40 cents gets us. We need a slide that shows us what the 50 cents.
With the
That's this.
50%.
No,
No,
like
like
the
the
one that
actual-
showed $45,000 salary.
it shows the positions and everything.
Positions, you're gonna have.
Yes.
That one that shows the total, yeah.
We have to vote
That
on
one.
ballot language also,
This
right?
is just what our cost is for needs.
Yeah,
Oh, so you
yeah,
add-
we want you
add-
to see, I want you to add some items through there that add up another.
Got it.
Because we have needs.
What, between our tech and our,
Increase technology
Supply
staff,
and I
increase,
think-
increase supplies for classrooms,
And I
increase
think-
supplies for
And I
athletics.
think how we.
Uniform cycle.
Yes.
It's important how we talk about it, because we can't define it as wants. I mean,
Esports at the middle school.
Yeah, these are
But
needs.
that's the main purpose, right,
We
Keith,
have
is
state-
of the next
That's right.
amendment is ballot language. Our last
Well, it's pretty
Right,
set
but
though.
we've got
So
to
where are we
decide,
at right now?
we've got,
Oh,
Yeah, but that's
40
not gonna be on the
50 cents
ballot.
per person.
that's
It's
what
gonna
we
be-
decide next time.
Yeah.
Right.
we have to decide
And what
because
we're
we have to
asking
file.
her is to bring us, okay, we've already got what we get for 40 cents. What do we get for 50?
Yeah.
In other words, what are we telling the
Allocate-
community that we
Allocate
also
that
need?
additional
That
10
extra 10
cents.
cents, that $250,000 a
And
year,
it'll go away quick.
what are we gonna get?
When you start
We're gonna
adding
get
technology staff,
more secure
adding
buildings.
technology.
We're gonna get
You know,
better technology.
and if some of that
We're
can
getting
be,
better systems. Huh?
Who's on the fence? I'm just curious, is that even is that a waste of time, or do we have the votes passed at 50% now?
50
50
cents.
cents. Now,
I'd like to see
that's
it
what I'm
both
saying,
ways.
like, so we're more productive this next meeting.
I'll say this, I'm willing to consider the 50 cents, but I need to see what we're gonna get.
yeah, I think if we do the
Because
background and
I
get the
have to be able to go to
justification
the
to
people
it.
and say, I mean, we all do, have to be able to say, hey, like we did with this one, like Minnie did with that one, and work our way back.
Well,
This
we
is what
could
we
come,
need.
we could come up with a huge list. How far in the future do we want to look?
Well,
I
yeah,
don't think we
mean,
could look 20 years
Right.
out. Let's
No.
just look 3-4 years out,
And I think,
I just though,
realistically.
guys, I bet
I
you,
think it's split, to
And
answer
I-
your question, I don't think you have a.
we don't have the
30, 40 and a
staff
half or
that other
50, yes,
districts
based
our
on what
size
they
have.
said. Yeah.
We're understaffed. And if we had that staff alone, that would eat up that 10 cents.
2 years ago, we just hired our first ever curriculum director, which is mind blowing to me.
Exactly. And
but,
we
but
need-
voters want to hear about teachers in classrooms,
Mhm.
not as mu,
No.
it's not a hot button for them to have they don't even know what that is. You know, it's about teachers and classroom sizes, and that's, you know.
Teachers, classroom sizes, potentially technology,
Security,
potentially security.
technology.
Security is an
Security's
issue.
a big
I think if we can look at some of this and say, hey, this would help us with some of our funding or the security issues, that's a hot button for
It is.
people. People would say,
We-
that's
we-
worth
the
throwing
bad thing
some
about that
dollars
is we sold that with the bond, though.
We can,
That was our bond.
Well, some
But it didn't get
secure-
us all the way.
secure things, but we
Right.
will
So that's
have,
the
like, for
point. I mean,
example, our SRO, it's a three-year grant, and my calculations didn't calculate in that the phase out of that, and then we're on the cuff for that entire
Yeah,
salary.
put that on.
For SRO.
yeah, that's exactly, yeah, I would put that on there.
It's a three-year
Yeah, put
grant, but
that
this
on
year a
there.
large portion of the salary is paid for, next year we pick up more and more to where at the end of 3 years, we're paying the
Is
full
part of
salary.
your 550,000 of additions, is that actually adding a building secretary to every school?
Mhm.
That's huge.
Mhm.
I'm not interested in any shape or form discussing 40 cents.
Okay,
I'll sit
Well, I mean,
here,
we have a direction.
depend on how much you want to get into the story. I mean, it's not talking about the staff we've already added and squeezed to maintain the budget.
And some of
We have
those are
assistant
being-
principals that didn't exist 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
and there are staff that we
I mean,
need that
right?
are
I
being
mean,
paid by grants.
yeah.
That won't be paid by grants, because grants don't last forever.
No, the Jackson County Children's Service Fund are sustainable grants, that's a large portion, so as long as we're showing the use of the funds and the growth in the program and the success of students through reporting that we have to do, that is something we can continue to apply for. But we have other grants, a couple other grants that have gone away, or will go away, so.
So on the 18th, the football banquet is at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'll be late,
Okay.
yes, because I'm not missing
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But
Well, this will
I
take
don't
place
know
in
how long
open.
it'll last. It'll be
Yeah.
the first one I'm going to, so.
Okay.
And it'll be the first one to church, so who knows?
Who knows?
Sure, that's true, we can ask him how long
Yeah.
that will be, but, okay.
I'm good with 50.
Yeah, it'll be open, it starts till 7, but,
I'd
It
make a
shouldn't be
motion right
past
now.
7. That would be way new.
we don't have any action items, it's the work session.
I'm just saying,
Discussions only,
I just think it's irresponsible not to.
all right?
yes. Because we know, I know, there is a need for at least 50 cents, probably more.
It's just like what Jeff's analogy is that he did with the windows, is if we're sitting here trying to determine what I should be putting for a college fund for Jack, we're probably not gonna use my daughter Kennedy's real cost.
Right.
And so that's,
Well, that's good that
I
you
don't
can
think
do
that's
that. I mean,
hard.
that's a really advantage of your childhood. I mean, I had no idea how expensive a kid was in college when one was born. But you have that, you have working knowledge of that. You know how much college, when my kid was born, I had no clue how much it would cost me. You know! That is such an advantage you have. Yeah, yeah.
Any more discussion items? Anything else anybody like to say?
Thank you, guys, appreciate all your, and appreciate your efforts behind this, Mrs. Hampton,
Next
and the
week
work
is,
it takes,
since it is
and everybody
Christmas
else.
time, we'll have dinner
all right.
during closed session.
It's 6:15.
Next meeting, full meeting, December 18th, this says 7 PM.
Open
Just for
until
open,
7,
okay,
yeah.
we'll still have, okay.
6:15
Okay.
and then open.
Motion to close.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes.
I have a motion and a second
It's
to adjourn,
amazing
all in
what you've
favor?
done without me.
Randy, would
Yeah.
you like to?
Yes, I'm out.
Okay.